think we can start with one of the steps from the 12 steps, maybe at least half of it, because it's been coming up a lot in sessions and obviously when I go to meetings and things. But step one starts with the word powerlessness, and it's like a critical point in the 12-step recovery for the alcoholic. If they first don't, what they would call complete defeat. Uh, if they don't admit complete defeat, meaning that they're powerless over alcohol primarily, obviously. Yeah, if they take a drink, then they're gonna go. But that term powerlessness is quite a subtle and dynamic word. I feel like you could write whole books on this one idea um, of powerlessness. So the alcoholic's powerless over alcohol, but it quickly extends. Yeah, they're powerless over the family, the partner, powerless over the world. The reason it's very important is because it goes far beyond the 12 steps. And what's helped me most in like spiritual practice and the 12 steps, they go like hand in hand, is to see what the mental system is doing, which is making me so uncomfortable. Yeah. And then rather than trying to change that mental system or manipulate it into some perfect mental system, which I tried, which failed really beautifully, which was great because I then was like, okay, that ain't gonna work, obviously, yeah. Is to start to just lose faith that that J is going to become something other than J, yeah. Like it's going to become a super ethereal, non-judgmental J, let's say. But first, you have to see what the mental system is doing, and powerlessness highlights a lot of what the head does because the mental system thinks and puts itself in the place of being the all powerful. So in AA, they say you have to stop playing God. Yeah. Or Ramana Maharshi would say, like, there's something playing God in your life, and that's a false God. Yes. That is the mental system. Now, the head thinks it has power over everything that it's coming in contact with for the most part. And it's playing that role of God. Yeah. It's interpreting everything as contents comes in through the senses, it interprets it and it interprets it from its own interpretation. So, and it only has that one interpretation. So it's playing God in that way. And now, of course, it wants a pleasurable stance. Yeah. So it wants to be like from my example, it needs to be better than, because if it's worse than, then that would confirm one of the head's interpretations that it's worthless. Yes? So in order for it to be worth something, it has to take this false power. And it goes on this way, on and on, the mental system. The head thinks it has all of this power to interpret situations and put itself in the stance of the right one, let's say. Yeah, or the one that wants things this way. This is like my sponsor would always say this. He's like, I want things the way I want them, when I want them, and how I want them. And when I don't get them that way, my head goes off. Yeah. This is like the premium problem in recovery. I want what I want when I want it. When I don't get it that way, uh, it's everybody else's fault. Yeah. It's beautiful. So in practice of yoga or even Buddhism, yeah, it would be very important to see that the head is trying to play God with its interpretation. It's seeing everything through its own story in a way, and it wants power because it wants to stabilize in a pleasurable state. Uh, it's really good to see it, not to try to change it, because the mental system will keep going. It will keep my head will keep thinking it has power over other people in the world. It goes on, yeah. Uh, but to see it and to meet it with a fact from 12 steps and from Advaita, by the way, of powerlessness, is very useful because when it goes and tries to take power over other things, like let's say the world or the government or what's going on in the world or other people, yeah? You can meet it with like a more of a truth that it doesn't have power over all of those things. And then rather than trying to change the mental, you just move faith away from its wanting to hold power over everything because it's going to keep trying to be powerful in that way. It holds a false power. The second part of that step one is unmanageability. That's like the cherry on top of the cake of powerlessness, yeah? Because it's kind of like the sponsor might say, okay, so the head is powerless over other people. And then the person goes, yeah, 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 yeah. And then the sponsor will go, okay, so next time your head thinks it has power over your partner or over your family or something like that, go with it, yeah? And see if your life becomes manageable when you try to hold power over things that you don't have power over. And very quickly, the person will see that their life becomes unmanageable. Yeah. So really, it's beautiful because you can see the mental system thinks it has power over something. Let's say the government, just because it's such a big, loud, uh, obvious thing. Yeah. The head thinks it has power over the government, and then it tries to wield that power somehow by complaining a lot to friends or whatever. Yeah. Now I know this is like coming from personal experience. So I'm bitching a lot about the government because my head wants power over what they're doing, yeah? It doesn't have power over that. And then guess whose life becomes unmanageable? Not my friends, yeah? Me. Me when I'm sitting somewhere and then I feel bad about how I was complaining and making it bad for them, yeah? This is the beauty of it. And the other beautiful thing about it is you start to see that the mental system is operating somewhat what it feels is autonomously. Yeah, it feels very independent in a way, and it's taking a lot of privilege with that independence by throwing its power on things. And when you see that it starts to make your life unmanageable, you start to lose faith in what that mental system is doing as far as its false power. And that goes beyond the 12 steps. To me, that is like, you're really starting to see things as they are in a way. Yeah. And it's really beautiful because if your life becomes unmanageable, then the evidence is in your own experience. You stop listening to me and you see how it plays out. Yeah. You can see how it plays out even in your day when you move through today and you're driving and somebody cuts you off and the head goes off. Yeah. Why are people like this? Why is everybody doing this? The head wants power over it. Yeah. But it doesn't have power over it. And it gets very irritable when it keeps trying to wield its power. So it's beautiful to meet the mental system with this idea of powerlessness because it expands. This idea of powerlessness goes quite far. Yeah. In recovery, step one can be like you could spend a year on step one just picking the things you're powerless over, you know? The other thing that I've always noticed is when I was first presented with the idea of powerless, I thought it was very simple. I was like, yeah, I mean, I was very confident. Yeah, for some reason, despite the fact that my life had fallen apart, I was very confident in my beliefs. uh, I took the idea of powerlessness as very simple. Like, yeah, yeah, no, I know that. Let's go to the next one. Yeah. And it was like, all right. But the thing is, it gets more subtle. I thought I had power over I thought I had power over the mental system and what it was going to do. That was another big misunderstanding in my head. Because when I used to get super depressed, it would just go on its own. Like it would just pop whenever it wanted to pop, the depression, yeah? And then if I tried to stop it, it wouldn't stop. It would actually get worse because that was me again trying to take power over something I was powerless over. The head is presenting ideas. The mental system is conditioned, yeah? Meaning it's like a program. So when it meets a certain circumstance, it goes back to the same ideas constantly, yeah? That can happen individually and societally. But individually, the head is a conditioned thing. It sees through its own interpretation. those interpretations can be shifted a little bit, but when it comes to real core ideas like I'm worthless, for instance, a lot of fields of psychology would simply say that those don't really change. We just kind of see them and stop going with them, which is what the 12 steps are doing. But to see that I was powerless over the mental system in most ways, if not always, and the physical system, meaning the body, because when I would get super depressed, my body would get really cold, and my blood would start to like come into the center of the body. Uh, and I had no control over it, you know? I was powerless over it. So the thing about powerlessness is it goes beyond just like other people in the world. It can be brought inward. You can see your head make moves on its own in a way. And if you go with those moves, your life becomes unmanageable. Yeah, like anger or irritability. If you go with anger, your life quickly becomes quite unmanageable. Yeah, because other people are not going to meet your anger with, oh, no, you're right. It doesn't work like that. Yeah. So because what's worked for me is negation, I essentially, you see the head do it because you are awareness, which is before the body and the mind. Or let's say the ever-present stillness in the field of stillness. Everything else is moving. The mental system is moving. The body is moving. The world is moving. Yeah, but you can only see what's moving from stillness. And what you are is that stillness, space, let's say. You're not space, but in Tibetan Buddhism, they say it feels like space. So you can see the head do all of these things, but if they're not pointed out with some understanding, it's hard to get a grapple on it. Yeah. But powerlessness highlights a lot of what your mental system is trying to do, because my mental system's trying to do it, and I'm not unique. Yeah. So it highlights a lot of the movement of the head. And it helps with a lot of discomfort because rather than going along with what the head is telling you, like, oh, these people should be different when they're driving or the government should be different, yeah, you hit it with that stamp of powerlessness. And it kind of writes the seat of the mental system. And then what gets relief is you. Yeah, the government will keep going on, people will keep driving crazy. Crazy things will keep happening. Yeah, this is duality, this world, so it's a wild place. But in a way, it's like that live and let live slogan they use in recovery. Because really, the only one left with the residue of trying to take power that it doesn't have is me. Yeah. I'm the one sitting there uncomfortable and irritable and angry. And that's not giving me much relief, which really yoga should be giving relief. Yeah. So it's to see how the head operates, to see that it's trying to grab onto a bunch of power that it doesn't have, both internally and externally, and to lose faith in its grabbing. Yeah, there's a lot of relief in that, and then life becomes manageable, not from you doing anything. The more the more we go with the mental system, the more unmanageable it gets in many ways. Mm. So to see it operate, to point out what's going on, because it's a dualistic system, seeing from a subjective point of view at a bunch of objects, that's never going to change. That's the nature of the mental system, is this world of two-ness. Yeah. Uh, and essentially, yoga would say if you live from that world of two-ness only, suffering will prevail. Yeah. So we point out how it's operating and how it's making us uncomfortable and fragmenting or separating our situation. And rather than going with it, you see it because you're before it. Yeah. Mm.